Peace be upon you, my friends. Today I brought you a story that you will like, and at the same time shock you. Before the beginning of the clip, put a like and let the story begin. Today's story talks about an Arab man of Lebanese origin and his Syrian wife who were residing in Lebanon and traveled to Kuwait for work. And it is said that the reason for their travel was for Kuwait. It is the large amount that was offered to him by the owner of a commercial company in Kuwait. This man's name is Kamal. After Kamal traveled to Kuwait, he rented an apartment in one of the buildings. It was a large apartment, and it was in a building downtown, and it overlooked the sea directly, and it was in a tourist area, and it was in an area reserved only for wealthy people and important figures, and the amount of living in that apartment was very expensive. After a while, Kamal and his wife returned to Lebanon again, but this time they did not inform anyone, not even the owner of the apartment, and they did not return to Kuwait after that. This is not the problem, my friend. Rather, the problem is that they did not return the keys to the apartment to its owner, and he kept waiting for payment for a period exceeding 4 months, and then he went to court for a lawsuit was filed, and after a few days, the court gave permission to the owner of the apartment to break down the door and collect all water and electricity taxes for the entire period that the room was closed. A fine was imposed on the accused Kamal and his wife, and if they return to Kuwait, they will be forced to pay it or go to prison. After that, the owner of the room went to his room and smashed the door. However, when the door was smashed, I noticed a strange thing, which is that the apartment was locked with many things, as if the person who was inside it did not want anyone to enter it. When the owner of the apartment entered it, he found it empty and did not contain any furniture except for one refrigerator, which was located in one of the rooms. The owner of the apartment was surprised that they took all the furniture and left a refrigerator, so he went to inspect it, and when he arrived there, he found it locked with iron chains, a huge lock, and connected to electricity, so he brought the police to inspect it, and when the police arrived, he and 2 policemen opened the lock, and when they opened it, both the policeman and the owner of the apartment were shocked because the refrigerator did not contain any food or even money. Rather, inside it was a completely frozen adult woman, and her body was intact, as if she had died a few minutes ago. But in fact, more than 4 months had passed since her death. After finding the body, they called the criminal police. Upon her arrival, she began opening an investigation into the body, the cause of her death, and who lived inside the apartment. The owner of the apartment gave them all the information, so the police investigated more deeply and discovered that a month before Kamal's departure from Kuwait, he had informed security that his worker, who was of Filipino origin, had disappeared, and no trace of her could be found. But the police at that time believed that the worker had fled despite this matter. It happens a lot, so the police will not pay any attention to the matter and close the case. But the real story is that it was a false report, and that worker did not run away or disappear, but was killed by Kamal, and the body that was in the refrigerator was hers. So Kuwait swallowed the Lebanese authorities to arrest Kamal, since the last country he traveled to was her, Lebanon. But after a while, the Lebanese authorities responded to them and told them that this man had fled the country and gone to Syria. The Lebanese authorities, at the request of the Syrian authorities, arrested Kamal and began his trial. After pressure on him, Kamal confessed to all the details of the case and said that his wife used to assault the worker every day by beating her. And this matter was confirmed by a second Filipina maid who was a friend of the worker who was found murdered and said this. The speech after she was summoned by investigators and said that the maid who was found murdered, her closest friend, was saying that Kamal's wife was violent and assaulted her by hitting her and did not pay her on some occasions. Kamal was not questioned about whether this was true. He said that everything the maid said was true. They asked him to give them the full details of the case from beginning to end. He said that one time my wife was screaming at the maid and insulting her as usual. He said that the matter had become normal for him, even though the matter was repeated every day. But the unusual thing that happened that night was that his wife lost control more than all the previous times, and she picked up an iron hammer and hit me. Her head was so strong that he heard the sound of a skull breaking, and the maid fell to the ground, killed. Kamal and his wife feared that what his wife had done would be revealed and they would go to prison. An idea came to Kamal's mind, which was to carry the maid and put her in the refrigerator. So he and his wife carried her. This was in order to get rid of the smell of the corpse and escape from it, the house. But Kamal felt that the body was still alive and not dead. And the shock was that they discovered after the autopsy that the real cause of death was not the blow to the head. Rather, it was due to the freezing of the blood vessels, and Kamal was sentenced to 45 years in prison, and his wife was not caught because she fled and did not leave any evidence behind her.